Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. We'll wait 2-3 minutes and then we'll start. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Shashank, not really. Not really. Gulam, last 5%. More or less fine. Good evening. Good evening. Wait 1-2-3 minutes maximum because half of you are here, half of you are still not here. So waiting for you to join in. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Okay. So yesterday we started art and culture and we have covered the Mauryan period, specifically pillars. And what we were able to see was the shaft, the cylinder, along with the base, and we saw the lower abacus, the upper abacus, and the capital figure, making it the whole capital and the shaft itself. And in the capital figures, we discussed what were the different type of capital figures which could be there. Now, today we move beyond this. Unfortunately, palaces, etc., do not survive. So we have to straight away go to the capital in Sarnath is 4 lions. Yes. Now we have to go to straightforward the discussion related to Buddhist architecture, which developed during the period of Mauryans, specifically Ashoka, and that is called a stupa. It is called a stupa. Now, to be very, very clear that, see, the stupa, I'll show you a stupa first. Stupa, it looks like something like this, which has an anda, the medhi, the torna, the harmika, the chhatra. This is Sachi's oldest stupa. Now, when we talk about stupa, basically the idea is it refers to a burial mound. And when we talk about stupa concept, it is not exclusive to Buddhism. In Jainism, even in Vedic Brahmanism, the concept of burial mounds, burial mounds are still there. Now, to be very precise, the implementation or design of stupa is unique to Buddhism. Meaning, the way it is made, it is unique to Buddhism, but the concept itself is not something unique to Buddhism, or the concept of burial mounds is common in Jainism, Vedic Brahmanism, and even Buddhism. And in 2023, straightforward question came from this area, wherein they argued that it is not an exclusive concept. It is not original to Buddhism. Yes, it is not original to Buddhism. It is something which maybe Buddhism also copied, like the Mauryan pillars itself. Now the question is, what does the stupa represent? What does it represent? What chapter do we need to do from Nitin Singhania? The time will come, I will tell you. Now, I can say all. So, yeah. Now, which religion is first to build stupa? Buddhism. But stupa, as we see it, what you think of it, is only Buddhist in imagination. But if burial mound is something which is from the Vedic Brahmanism itself, the simple point is stupa concept of representing somebody as buried as a mount is not specific to Buddhism. However, the structure which I'm going to tell you, exactly like Mauryan pillars were not first made by the Mauryans. It was previously there, but the way it was implemented is different. So, stupa, what does it represent? What does it represent? There are two main purposes of stupas. See, stupas are not made till Buddha is alive. And very simply, Pritesh, I still again know that you joined just now, 5:10. So obviously you will not understand. Not understanding, I know. Because you joined, Pritesh Sisod joined 5:10. So come on time. Now, you made this a point to do it. I don't know what happiness you get out of it. Either come on time or don't write not understanding when you're coming in between class. So when we talk about stupa represents, we have ascertained that the idea of stupa, which I showed you, is not specific to Buddhism, idea. But the implementation is unique to Buddhism. But if somebody says the concept, the idea, it is not specific to Buddhism. It is there in Jainism also and Vedic Brahmanism also. And stupa represents something very specific. And that specific representation first is it usually had the relics of Buddha, usually had the relics of Buddha. Relics means these are objects used by Buddha. They usually had the relics of Buddha, and it is basically a pilgrimage site. Buddhists visit stupas as a way of worship and homage to Buddha. Now, obviously, not every stupa can have relics because there's a finite number of things which Buddha used. But now, if you make a stupa, obviously it does not have a relic. It is believed that initial 84, 85 stupas actually had it. But again, once the idea is that it represents Buddha, it is presumed that the relic is there. Symbolically, it is presumed that the relic is there. So, the earliest stupas may have it. Later stupas may not have it. But it is immaterial because symbolically it is believed that the stupa is Buddha himself. Relics are small objects which Buddha used throughout his life. For example, his clothes, the utensils he used, all things which are considered to be related to Buddha, they are relics. They are objects used by Buddha. So the first purpose is very clear. That if you go to the Sachi Stupa, you are basically going there. So in 2023, it was asked that Buddha's relics are there. That's a correct statement. That's a correct statement because it is presumed that it is there. It cannot be that I make a stupa today and it would be there. But I believe it is there. It is basically like presuming it's a symbolic concept that the relic is there. You keep it simple. All stupas have relics, but that cannot be technically true. That cannot be technically true. Buddha's body components like hair and all, very, very rarely would you preserve hair. It's more about his objects he used. Okay. Yeah, the god is in the temple belief, the concept, simple point. If I put a certain murti somewhere and I believe that god is there. So in a way, when stupa is there, it is believed that the relic was also there or is there. Stupa is not post-Mauryan period. One of the person who made the most stupas in India itself is Ashoka. So the simple point is, it is a pilgrimage site. Can we accept it? Did Buddha ever call himself God? That discussion we already had. No. Pagoda is also related to Buddha. I'll discuss that XY. Can we agree on this? First thing I'll tell you one thing. Stop telling me things. Ask me, okay, sure, perfectly fine. Stop telling me things because I know what I'm saying. So I have a question, you ask me. What you're doing is that then I have to refute you, then it takes time, makes no sense. Ask me a question, I'll be happy to answer. Don't write fundas to me, makes no sense. Concept of stupa is Buddhist origin or Jain origin. Again, if you go by origin concept, it is Vedic Brahmanism. Because Vedic Brahmanism is much older than Jainism and Buddhism. The concept and idea is seen in the Vedic texts also. First is pilgrimage site. And I presume that you are moving forward to this question. So I presume everybody understands what does it mean to be a pilgrimage site. This is not the real question. The second purpose is more important. Buddhism is not the first religion to innovate stupa. It is a borrowed concept, sure. Okay. Now we go to a more interesting aspect of stupas, and then we'll discuss the components of stupas. You will make a stupa also, so you need to keep a pen and paper also handy. Now, the second purpose of the stupa is more interesting. And sir, all stupa is known as Sachi stupa. No, Sachi is a place. Stupa is stupa. All stupas are called stupa. So you have Amravati stupa, you have Sarnath stupa, you have place is coming first. Now, see, if you look at, for example, pilgrimage sites of Hinduism, are they very accessible? Are they very accessible? In most cases, no. For example, Badrinath, Kedarnath, you have Amarnath, mostly in the hills or in very deep jungles. Pilgrimage sites were mostly kept, Vaishno Devi, yes, mostly kept away from the trade routes, the urban center. They had their own holiness. They had their own holiness. A sacred place was there. And therefore, if stupas were only pilgrimage sites, then they would always be placed very obscure, where Buddha was, on very very interesting spaces inside, on what we call as on mountains, or somewhere it should not have been. But the ironical thing about stupas was, stupas were mostly placed on trade routes, very accessible. And herein comes the second interesting purpose of stupa, which is they were a propaganda institution or building. You want to call it advertisement? You want to call it advertisement. You call it whatever you want to call it. See, basically, stupas had, one second. Considered propagation institutions. See, and this again came in the examination this time, or taught in the past 5 years the same way. See, stupas are not an innocent structure. They're not there to just remember Buddha. Stupa gates, the gate and the railings of the stupa, that's called Toran, always have the Jatak stories on them, or have the concept of Buddha's life on them. And basically, the accessibility of stupas was to keep them on trade routes so that people would see this institution, find it unique, and if they knew about Buddha, they would pay homage. But if they did not know about Buddha, they would look at it and get to know, okay, there was a man called Buddha. Because they are very strategically placed on major trade routes. The earliest of all stupas are not just a pilgrimage site, they are also a certain advertisement. On the highway, when you go, the billboards or the ad boards which you see, are they 5 kilometers away from the highway? Are they 5 kilometers away from the highway? No, they are exactly next to the highway. So that when you go from there, you look at that billboard and you are able to figure out what it is. Think of stupas like that billboard, that on all major trade routes, on flat plain areas, they used to always keep the stupa. They used to place the stupa very strategically. And the strategic location of stupas basically tells us that stupas are not just a pilgrimage site, but are also a propagating or propagation institution. They are there to tell about Buddha, and that is why all elaborate, proper, story based gateways were attached. These gateways were attached so as to make sure that if you don't know about Buddha, you would ask the person next to you or the person who is there to tell you the story of Buddha. And if you can, you would then become at least an arhat, which is who knows basic things about Buddha. And which is the biggest constituency of Buddhism? Which community is the biggest constituency of Buddhism? It is the traders and the Vaishyas. Who will you find the most on trade routes? Again, traders. So in a way, the placement of the stupa is quite strategic. So the two purposes of the stupa, other than just being a borrowed concept out of Vedic Brahmanism and Jainism, are we clear about them? Do we understand the two concepts, pilgrimage site and propaganda institutions? Yes? Okay. Now, what I've established in the past 20-25 minutes is only two things. Stupa is a borrowed concept, but unique in its structure. Thereafter, Kumar, you've done ancient with me. Thereafter, I've also established the two purposes of stupas, 1 and 2. One is it is a pilgrimage site, holy site, represents Buddha. And understand one thing, mostly Buddha is represented in stupa only. So if you have a stupa, you are basically representing Buddha. Second is propagation. Advertisement, spread of Buddhism in order to make sure the ideologies and stories of Buddha are spread. Why borrowed concept? Because in Vedic Brahmanism, the stupa is basically a burial mound. When you bury somebody, you put dirt over that person or that mud over that person. That burial mound concept is not specific to Buddhism. It is there in Vedic Brahmanism also, and it is there in Jainism also. So the idea is not specific to them. If we are clear about this, then we talk about the structure. Are we clear about these 2 points? Yes? Have to be more vocal. All stupas show Buddha. All stupas shows Buddha relic only or other subjects also. Now I don't know what you mean by that. Okay. Write your questions properly. Ad means what? Advertisement. जो टीवी पे देखते हो. Advertisement. Even megalithics also arrangement burial sites. In a way. In a way. I'm telling you how to make a stupa, don't worry. But Vedic Brahmanism is believing in cremation. Sure. But once you cremate, you can also create a certain memorial stone for that person. Kumar, that is why I asked you, have you done ancient medieval? Because if you haven't, then it will create a problem. Samadhis are always there. So you may think you know, but you don't know. Right. Please write Hinayanic Buddhism for a better. I again, Ashay, somehow you are telling me to do something. You don't know what you are saying itself. Second simple point, Sakshi, as I said, it is there to spread Buddhist ideology because the Toranas, the railings had stories of Buddha. End of story. Okay. Now, components of a stupa. Now, to be very clear, everything which is there in a stupa has a name. But obviously, you don't have to learn each one of them. The ones which I'm telling you are the ones which you have to remember and have to write in the examination. You have to make it in the examination also. Stupa worship is part of Hinayanic Buddhism. Stupa symbol worship is part of Hinayanic Buddhism. Stupas are made in Mahayanic Buddhism also. But to be very Ashe, if you run this a little bit harder, you would understand that we are talking about Ashoka. Does during the period of Ashoka, Hinayanic and Mahayanic Buddhism exist? Can anybody tell me Ashe's answer question? What is the problem in his presumption? Ashoka period, is there Hinayanic or Mahayanic Buddhism? And the answer to that question is no. Ashoka is second Buddhist council. There is nothing. Rather, the third Buddhist council. It is after him that it is going to be there. Okay. So Abhidhamma written under him, nothing else. Buddha stupa only has Buddhist relics, obviously, Anurag. Why would it have someone else's relics in it? Okay. Yes, fourth Buddhist council under Kanishka, it will split. Okay. I'll tell you that Yashwant, not the time and place to ask that question. But now today, can we say also? Yes, Ashay, you can now still say. Again, you are trying to push something which you don't know. Buddha Supa is used in both Mahayanic and Hinayanic. And if something is before the genesis of something, it automatically becomes a part of it. Relics of his disciples are not used, mostly Buddha. Now, any stupa have ancient temples? No. Temple is not something specific to Buddhism. Is it presumed to have relic? Yes. See, the problem is you all are still joining in. So you are coming from a certain lag, and I'm going to ignore that now. So what are the components of a stupa? Please pay attention here because this comes in the examination. Now the first thing which mostly all stupas have is called the entry gate or the gateway. And the Buddhist name for that is Torana. Toran is a word which is used in uh, Hinduism till today. Toran is what you put in on the auspiciousness on your gate. So basically, that concept of having a Toran on the chaukhut of your house or on the gate of your house is basically coming from Buddhism only. So the gateway Torana concept comes from here. Thereafter, you have what is called a mostly. If it survives, it survives. If it doesn't survive, it does not survive. It is called a boundary wall. This has different names in different contexts, but is called Suchi. Is called Suchi. To show it to you properly, you see here. This is a Toran. This is the Suchi, which is the boundary wall itself. Now, we don't have to go into that vertical and horizontal stump. We don't have to go into that. To show you a little bit more precisely, the torans are very beautifully carved like this. That is why this Toran has either Jatak stories or has the life stories of Buddha on them. So when you enter into it, you look at this structure, and on the railings itself, it is written down the stories of what it represents, what it is. So to have the advertisement on the gate itself is a very well placed idea. Now let's go back to the concept itself, which is we've discussed 2 points, which is Suchi and Toran, the two words which we have talked about. Now comes the main structure. Which is made on a platform, and this platform is called Medhi. It's called a Medhi. On the Medhi, you have the most prominent and most known structure of the stupa, which is called the Anda. This is the hemispherical mount or dome, is not hollow but solid structure. Over the Anda, so as to give it a certain height so that it can be seen from far away, you have a box. And this is called Harmika. And to give it more height, there is the Yashti, and on the Yashti you have what are called the Chhatras. If I had to zoom into these two components, it basically looks something like this. This is the central pillar is called Yashti. This is called the Chhatra. So the central pillar is considered a different structure, and the Chhatras are basically Chhatri-like structures, umbrella-like structures on it. Now, because it represents a certain idea, wherein you have to basically, it represents Buddha. You can go up, and what you can do is you can take up parikrama of this. And this is called Pardakshina Patha. Pardakshin Path, or basically Parikrama Path. Parikrama Path. So basically, you can go up, and you can then go around it, and then you can come down if you need to. This is basically the basic structure of most of the standard stupas which we see. There can be little bit up down, but mostly these are the parts which we see. Toran, Suchi, Medhi, Anda, Harmika, Chhatra, Yashti, Pardakshin Path, and there could be more than one Toran. There could be nothing. Pardakshin Path, again, Vaishna, most of you should not act like you don't belong to any religion. Vaishna, you tell me, when you go to a temple, you just go into the garbhagriha and come out. When you go into a temple, you mostly take a parikrama of it. You will go around the garbhagriha or around the temple itself. So Pardakshin Path is nothing but the path. The path, it's self-explanatory. It is the path on which you walk around the anda. So very simply, Pardakshin Path means how you move. You have a different word. See, the technical word is even more difficult. It's a Prakrit word. The Prakrit word is actually Pradakshin Path. I'm still making it simple for you by making it Pardakshin Path. It's Pradakshina Path. These are all Prakrit words. Simple point is the Pradakshina Path, or I'll write this. I'm not writing the Hindi version of it. I'll make it the Prakrit word only. Pradakshin Path is basically to go around something. Again, I hope that you have done it in your life. If you haven't, go to a temple and you will. So there are 8 things which are written on the slide. What type of question will come, Shubham? I will tell you, don't worry. Are these points clear? Are these points clear? Because I want to show it to you on a real stupa then. Yes? Okay. Pradakshin actually means, okay, whatever it may be, right? Now, see. You have this is Torana, this is Suchi, Torana, Suchi. Then this structure which you see here, which is more clear in this image, you see here. This is called Medhi. This is the Medhi. Thereafter, you have the Pardakshin Path, then the Anda, then the Harmika, the Yashti, and the Chhatras. Yashti, Harmika, Chhatra. So basically, You can hear me right? This stupa was made by Ashoka. Most of these stupas were started by Ashoka only. You have, for example, Medhi, Torana. The railing, as you can see, has been destroyed. So this was Suchi. I'm audible, visible, right? If I'm still stuck, refresh. Yes, okay. This is Anda. This is Harmika. This is Yashti. This is Chhatra. And this is the path on which you go around. Path on which you are going around. I'll refresh myself once. Wait. Okay. Now clear? Now all good? Yes? Okay. Now, when we talk about what do you do have to do with this information? See, we know that relics and ashes, burial mounds is the representation. Suchi it is not present here. Suchi is basically railing. It is destroyed here. Mostly it is destroyed, but it is there. Is there a monk worship inside the Anda? Sachin, read this line. What does this say? What does this say? Sachin, solid. So, solid means what? Got your answer? If it is a solid structure, mostly the relic is inside it when it was being built. Okay. Now, see, listen to me. I have taught you purpose, concept, and components. Now, a very standard question which can come in the examination is, what are the components of a stupa? What are the components of a stupa? Now, Sachin, you are referring to versions of stupas. I am referring to the original stupas. Now, what are the components of a stupa? Now, in this, you would have to make a stupa whilst explaining each and every part of it. The explanation part is given here, as I already told you. Anda is hemispherical mount, symbolic of Buddha itself. Harmika is the top mount. This is the box is called Harmika. This is out of Upinder Singh. Chhatra is the central structure. Medhi is the base. Production path is the path going around. Torna is the gateway. This is standard. In this, it will be expected that you make this diagram. That is more important. And it is believed that initially all stupas had relics, but we believe all stupas have relics, though it is not true technically because there are a certain number of relics which can be put in. Now, in the examination, if you get a question, what are the components of a stupa? Then you would have to make the following diagram. I'm going to make it in front of you. You also have to make it. So keep a pen and paper with you. You have to make it in the examination. Now, to make a stupa, you first make a hashtag, then a circle, then one rectangle, hemispherical mount, a box, 1, 2, 3, and you show stairs and use something like this as an arrow. Then it will take you more time to mark it than actually to make it. And if you've looked at this, this is how we have to draw after the body of the answer. Most probably, body will remain here, right hand space which is empty, which you will make there. Now I marked it, make it, tell me. I'm going to show it to you for 1 minute. Then everybody has to make it and tell me, because these are things which makes your paper at least break the monotony in the examination. Now make it. Numbers not important, whatever you want to mark. 8 components is expected at least. Still have to make it in 30 seconds. Not more than that. Not more than 30 seconds. Done. Forgot the names. Look at the names. Torana, Suchi, Medhi, Anda, Harmika, Yashti, Chhatra, Pradakshinpat. Right? Done? Okay. Perfect. Now, see, in India, the common structure which you see for stupas is this. But it is not that stupa remained the same. When it went to Southeast Asia, with Ashoka pushing it quite a lot, the structure changed. And if you've seen any Indonesian stupa images, you would see a structure like this, and the stupa therefore becomes hollow. Wherein you can now go inside the stupa like it is a structure or a temple. This is something which you will see quite a lot in the Southeast Asian sector when it comes to Buddhism. Now, if you move one step further and you go to Japan or East Asia, you get another set which is quite common in the Japanese, what we call as cartoons you would have seen, for example, in Doraemon, Shinchan and all, which is a structure like this. Have you seen this? You don't know it, but this is also a stupa. This is called a pagoda. This is also called a pagoda. These are the foreign versions of stupa. Pagoda. And very simply, you don't need to learn it. I'm just telling you how things keep on evolving. So you only have to remember this only. But I'm trying to tell you that you don't know it, but in the Ladakh sector, you also find this type of structure. In Bodh Gaya, the later edition of the stupa is very similar to this. But in East Asia, the manifestation changes, the whole implementation changes. So what I've taught you again till this point is the purpose. Second, yes, Himachal, Arunachal, Ladakh, Sikkim, all are Vajrayanic Buddhists, and Vajrayanic Buddhists use the newer designs. Now, what I've taught you is what is a stupa. Second is where is the concept coming from. Third is the purpose. Fourth is the component. Fifth is how to make it. 5 things I've taught you. Anybody has any issue in these 5? Anybody has any issue in these 5? Because then I discuss the important stupas with you and we can move forward. Right? No issues? Purpose, advertisement or propagation plus pilgrimage. But isn't it true that dome-like structures came popular? But yeah, firstly, you don't know what is a dome. Dome is always hollow. This is not a hollow. It is not hollow. Borrowed from the Vedic Brahmanistic and Jainism idea. The idea itself is not original to them. Are pagodas hollow? Yes, they are. That is why you can go inside them. In Japan, it's not called stupa, it's called a pagoda. Now, when we talk about the most popular or most important stupas, the first which comes to your mind and should come to your mind is the oldest stupa complex, which even has the UNESCO World Heritage Tag itself. It is the Sachi Stupa in MP, and made by Ashoka, reconstructed by a Brahmanical dynasty, Shungas. Why would the Shungas reconstruct a stupa? They are Brahmins. Why would they reconstruct a stupa? It is the appeasement of the merchants. If you don't keep the trading community very happy, you basically don't keep your empire happy. So Sachi Stupa in MP, you have large burnt bricks and mud mortar. This is the oldest how it was made by the old style brick model itself. Sachi in itself is a marvel. All images which I showed you as generic stupas come from Sachi itself, from Torna to Suchi to Pradakshin Path to the Anda, Harmika, Yashti. You have a whole complex there. But the most interesting stupa, which is also an exception, is the Sarnath stupa. Sarnath stupa, which represents the Dharma Chakra Parivartana, his first sermon itself. What is different about this stupa, made by Ashoka, later even rebuilt by the Guptas? What is the most obvious difference? Most obvious difference here in Sarnath? It is a cylinder. Cylindrical anda, not hemispherical anda. This is the most obvious one. And that is why Dhamek Stupa or Sarnath Stupa is considered important, because it represents from the top. Because if you look at it from the top, it represents that wheel of Dharma. If you look at it from the top, the wheel of Dhamma or Dharma. Thereafter, there are 2 stupas which you should know, but both don't survive actually. Toranam and all are outside the complex. It's not true. It's a much bigger garden complex, but the most obvious one is the Anda. Now, yes, Yashti and Harmika is also not there because of the structure. Now, the most interesting of all was actually Amravati. Amravati Stupa also called the Mahachaitya. I'll tell you what does that Chaitya mean. The Amravati Stupa is one of the most ornamented stupas ever. Ornamentation of stupa, which is very beautifully made. However, if you make a structure like a pilgrimage site very ornamented, what is going to happen over a period of time? What is going to happen over the period of time? The risk of destruction increases or it decreases? The risk increases, because the more lavishly you make it, the more the people want to take out, for example, the marble which is on it or the carving which is on it. And that is the story of Amravati Stupa. Amravati Stupa, we believe that more wear and tear was also there and more destruction was there, because it was very well beautifully ornamented, first made in the basic bricks, but later limestone was added on it, and therefore profusely ornamented. Ornamented means decorated, and that in turn made it a very standard site for destruction over a period of time. Now, the one which is the most important for us when it comes to imagery is Bharuch Stupa. Bharuch Stupa, made by Ashoka. What exists of this stupa, because people basically went and took out the bricks and put it in their houses, is that only gateway and railing is left. And whatever is left is in the Kolkata Museum itself. And what we get to know is two types of figures which intersect with Buddhism and Vedic Brahmanism. This is called a Yaksha, and this together is called the Yaksha Yakshi figures. Now, if you've ever given in Hinduism, if you've ever given any form of attention to any form of ceremony which has happened in your life, at your home or something, when mantras would be read, you would have heard about three things: Yaksha, Yakshi, and Mithun. I don't know how much you are attentive with regards to these things. Mithun, Yaksha, Yakshi are something which are actually referred to in Hinduism also. And ironically, what one more cultic concept, which is called Naga Nagi, is actually also referred to in Hinduism. If you've ever been to what we call as Bhumi Pujan, you would have seen people add silver snake into the foundation of the house. That is basically the Naga Nagi tradition, which is the worship of the snake god and the goddess of snakes. That basically what we see out of Bharuch Stupa is imageries remain the same. Yaksha Yakshi figure together and Yaksha alone are an auspicious figurine. If you put a Yaksha and Yakshi in front of the stupa, it represents auspiciousness. Naga Nagi, these are called sub-gods, demi-gods, or subordinate gods, and they are cultic concepts. Cults mean they're not proper religions, but they are within religion, smaller groups. So Naga Nagi, Yaksha Yakshi, and Mithun and all are figures which we see intersecting with Buddhism and Vedic Brahmanism. So what we have seen, what we are seeing is that even in the imagery, they are not original. The ideas of Jainism, in which again snake is there because Nemi and Nami are represented in the two Tirthankaras. Nemi is represented in snake. And if not Nemi, then Parsavnath is represented in snake. The fact of the matter is that these imageries remain the same. That is why Bharuch Stupa's railing is considered one of the most beautiful ever made. Now, before I go to cave architecture, what I want to do is consolidate. And then I'll give you a breather. Then we go to cave architecture. Again, a very small but interesting conversation. Now, what I've done with you since yesterday is I started with IVC. Then I went to Mauryan pillars. And Mauryan period, you have one pillar, one stupa. Under pillar, I gave you components. Under stupa, I gave you components. Under pillar, I gave you idea, borrowing, unique features. Idea, borrowing, unique features. And I've given you here the examples also. Here also I've given you examples. Barut, Sachi, Amravati, and Dhamek are four which you need to know. Nitin Singhani has a much bigger list which I don't care about. And what we also know is that the imagery is Yaksha, Yakshi, Mithun, Naga, Nagi are also coming up it is mostly in the all ornamentation in stupas is done on the suchi and the torana, not inside, outside. Now, if this is clear, then we move to post-Mauryan. And under post-Mauryan, we have first is cave architecture. These four are enough to write any answer if needed. No direct question has come with regards to example of stupa. How yaksha related to stupa? They are made in the torans, in the front itself, to show auspiciousness, to have a good start. How are yaksha yakshi? Again, I'm telling you, auspiciousness in Vedic Brahmanism, auspiciousness in the Buddhism also. In torans, they are put in the front. How you keep, for example, which is also incorrect, you keep Ganesh, Lord Ganesha or Ganeshji in the front of your house. So for auspiciousness, think of it, but in a different concept itself. Are we clear? Who are yaksha yakshi? Generic couple, male and female together with child, auspiciousness. Are we clear? The word yaksha is used like that. Can I give you a breather and we talk about cave architecture? Okay. I leave you here. Take it in 5 minutes and we move forward. Okay. Now we move to cave architecture. And see, what cave architecture actually means is that it is the architecture, or it is the process of making man-made caves, and you have ornamentation, which is decoration, which is the idea of what we call as carvings and sacred spaces. Now, the first question which should come to your mind is, which is the first donative caves of India? What do you mean by donative is donated to some religion? What is the answer to this question? Pavitra is saying Ajanta, Ajanta, Ellora, Ajanta, Ajanta, Shubham, perfect, Anurag, perfect. Jainism is a religion, not a cave. Amanda, Ellora, meaning Ajanta, Ellora, Vihara, Buddhism. See, the Barabar and Nagarjuni hill complex in Bihar, made by Ashoka and Dashrath. It was given to Ajivik monks. Rather, they are the first complex itself is actually Ajivik, which is Ashoka, his grandson, giving to Ajiviks, and they were given in the Barabar and Nagarjuni hill complex. The two hills together, and there were multiple caves made inside it. Now, the first thing which you should be clear about is that these are not naturally occurring caves. So, the level of commitment, the level of effort without any power tools, with no modern technology, with no modern, simple, straightforward chisel and hammer, they were able to create these caves inside hills. Now, they're named after the saints which were giving it, or Ajivik saints. One is called Sudama, the other one is called Karan Chaupara, meaning where they used to sit and meditate. Vishwa Jhopadi, and the most famous, which is the Loma Sisi cave. Except for Loma Sisi, these three have no ornamentation and are mostly plain caves, something like this. No ornamentation, you just go inside it. Loma Sisi is an exception because Loma Sisi has exterior ornamentation in the form of what you see here as decoration and carvings. So very simply, cave architecture, polished walls, absence of ornamentation except for Loma Sisi. These caves were given given. This is Loma Sissi from the outside. This is from the inside. Loma Sissi. Loma Sissi. And they were the first one to be carved out. They were the first one to be carved out. Now, whilst Barabar, now remember, Barabar Nagarjuni, Sudama Karan Chopara. Sudama is a person, Karan is the person, cave means cave, Chopar means you have Chopal, you would have heard the word Chopal. Karan Chopara, Prakrit word. Now, to be very precise, what have we understood? The first caves in India donated to any religion. That religion is Ajivikism, and Ashoka, Dashrath were the ones who are related to. Anybody has any issue? Because then I move to the more important ones. No issues, straightforward. Very good. Now, Jivikism is a religion, not a sect. Now, in Buddhism and Jainism, the oldest Buddhist caves in India are Ajanta caves. Now, Ajanta is only Buddhist, 29 total, sometimes 28, 29, 29th is not fully complete. Now, Jivikism is a religion. Now, in Buddhism, Jainism, other than having the oldest caves, there are two words. One is called Chaitya, the other one is called Vihara. Chaitya is a word which is used only in Buddhism. Vihara is a word which is used in Jainism, in Buddhism, even in Brahmanism. Meaning, if you find a Chaitya, it is most probably a Buddhist. There is no Chaityas in Jainism and Buddhism. Now comes the question, what is a Chaitya? What is a Chaitya? Now, Chaitya is basically the worship hall of Buddhism, and basically monks congregate and meditate together. Now there can be 4 types of Chaityas. See, Now see, the first type of Chaitya is no stupa, no image, only hall. What does stupa represent? What does stupa represent? Represents Buddha. Stupa equals to Buddha. If it is the relics of Buddha, it is Buddha. Stupa is equal to Buddha. In a way, that is the exact thing. Buddha and his relics. Now, the second type is pre-4th Buddhist Council Stupa Chaitya. Pre-4th Buddhist Council Stupa Chaitya means that right now, what does it mean? What does it mean? Pre-4th Buddhist Council, what does it mean? It means that it is before the main split within Buddhism, which is Hinayanic and Mahayanic. And this is why most of the people don't understand art and culture. Because if you haven't studied Buddhism, Jainism, it will not make sense to you. And if you're sitting there scratching your head, think about it. Once you have gone through the first and the second, there's only an aesthetic change. There's no Hinayana, there's no Mahayana. There is just one hall, and one hall which has a stupa. Wherein stupa, they will sit and meditate in front of that stupa. Thereafter, you have third and fourth type. This is called a Mahayanic Chaitya. Mahayanic Chaitya. Odd is books, even in split. Sachin, remember it properly. 1 and 3 books, 2 and 4 split. Mahayanic Chaitya, I know it, you should also know it. Mahayanic Chaitya has stupa and idol of Buddha. So that idol worship is there. Because it is Mahayanic. And last is called a Hinayanic Chaitya, wherein only stupa, no idol. So what is the difference between the second and the fourth? What is the difference between the second and the fourth? Very good. Timing. The difference between second and the fourth is timing. The second one was made before the split. The fourth one was made after the split. In the second one, there's no conscious choice. And in the fourth one, there's a conscious choice. So if I, for example, show you this. This is an example of 1, 2, 3, or 4. There can be 2 options. This is example of what? Example of 2 and 4. Very good. Example of 2 and 4. This could either be a Hinayanic cave or a cave made before the split itself. Now, if I show you this, what is it? 1, 2, 3, or 4? It is 3, because the stupa is also there and the idol is also there. So now by looking at the images of caves, you will be able to establish what is the type of Chaitya it is. What is the type of Chaitya it is? Perfect. Now comes the question with regards to what is a Vihara. Sir, for art and culture, ancient material must be covered properly, completely. Yes. Because I am moving in the same timeline. Whoever has done ancient would know I'm moving in the same timeline. I'm not going outside that timeline. I'm moving from Maurya to post-Maurya, splits I'm talking about which are already done. Now, what is a vihara? Vihara is the dwelling place or residence of the monks. This exists in all religions and is not specific to Buddhism. Meaning, you can have Jain Vihara also, and you have Anurag done ancient with me, and you have Buddhist Vihara also, and you also have Brahmanical Viharas. The name Bihar comes from Vihar, Brahmanical Viharas also. How you identify? By looking at stupa. If there is no idol, it is either 2 and 4. If it has an idol, it has to be 3. If it has nothing, it is the first stage and could be anybody's. Now, I know Anurag, there are 2 Anurags. You have A and U, he has A and U. So I know you also have an image, he does not have an image. Anurag, Raj, Abhishek, standard names of India. Anurag, Raj, Abhishek, Ruchi, Suchi, Richa, Rahul. If you've seen my email ID, it's abhishek.mishra19. That 19 is not related to my birthday and all. I'm the 19th Abhishek Mishra in this institution. So yeah. And exact Abhishek Mishra spelling. So yeah. Nalanda is not a vihara. Nalanda is a university. Okay. Now, viharas can be 2 types. First is attached to Chaitya, or second, non-attached to Chaitya. Meaning, you could have two types of vihara. Now, what is the relationship between Chaitya and vihara? Is basically like school and hostel, or college or hostel. It's basically a place where you study or you do what you do is Chaitya. Vihara is like a hostel. You go back and sleep there. So if you look at the vihara structures also, viharas mostly had these rooms in which you could go and sleep. You could go and sleep. And there could be 2 types of viharas. One could be that you have the Chaitya hall and there's a vihara attached to it. Here is the Chaitya, here is the vihara. There could also be a Chaitya vihara in which the Chaitya is separate, vihara entrance and place is separate. Mostly which used to happen. For example, in Ajanta, not all viharas are attached to Chaitya. Can we understand this? Attached to Chaitya and not attached to Chaitya? Yes, okay. Now, after this, just to reinforce, Chaitya is a Buddhist shrine or prayer hall and is a congregational place for monks. Chaityas were commonly part of monastic complex. Most beautiful Chaitya is Ajanta, Ellora, Bhaja, Karle, Bagh, Nasik, Kandheri. We'll discuss. Viharas are dwelling places of monks and carved out of brick or maybe made out of rocks. And there could be a situation in which the Chaitya has a stupa or a vihara attached to it. Difference between 2 and 4. 2 is before the split, 4 is after the split. If you don't know what is the split, go back and check Buddhism, Jainism. chapter. Okay. Now, the most oldest Buddhist caves are the Ajanta caves. And the Ajanta caves are actually placed in Maharashtra, and it is in the gorge. It is in the gorge of the river Voghera. So basically, the river goes like this in a horseshoe manner. And what is a gorge? Geography. What is a gorge? Gorge is a erosional form of landform made by a river which is cutting the you can call the mountain or the landscape vertically. So whenever a river is very old or is based on a rift valley and all, it will always cut the mountain vertically, and that is called a gorge. So gorges are basically a very good indication that the rocks are not that hard, not that hard that the river can't go through, and therefore they are very good places for making rivers. Obviously, rivers are not very good. They are good for making caves. Now there are total 29 caves in the what we call as Ajanta caves, but 28 are mostly counted because the 29th is an incomplete one. Out of it, 25 are viharas and 4 are chaityas. And the one which is not completed is a chaitya. Now, you don't need to remember the cave numbers. This is not of any purpose to you. And the one who started this is called Harisena, a Vakataka ruler who basically is known to have created the whole Ajanta complex itself. And 24 are Mahayanic, 4 are Hinayanic, 1 is not specific. And when we'll come to paintings, we'll talk about the Mahaparinibbana image, we'll talk about Avalokeshwar, we'll talk about which is Bodhisattva Padampani, we'll talk about Manjushri, and we'll talk about Vajrapani. That part leave for mural, part leave for paintings. What I want to do here is I want to just do one thing, which is make a Venn diagram in front of you. And through that Venn diagram, most of this can be done. Most of this can be done. Can I do that? A Venn diagram which basically sums up this whole module very well, because a lot of students don't know what to do with this information. And most of the questions revolve around the religion of them. So what we do is, you see, you make a Venn diagram like this. Buddhism, Jainism, I need a big one. Yes. Okay. Now, you have Buddhism, you have Brahmanism, and this is Jainism. This is Jainism. Now, Buddhism, Jainism, what you have to remember basically is a very simple, straightforward thing. Ajanta is a fully Buddhist, cave structure. Is a fully Buddhist cave structure. Then you have Ellora. Wherein it is not one, but the beauty of Ellora is it has 32 Buddhist, Brahmanical, and Jain caves. All three religions coexist here. And Ellora is an example of tolerance in the Indian subcontinent because all three exist together. You have Buddhist caves also, you have Jain caves also, you have Brahmanical caves also. Now, if I go one step further, you have Elephanta. Now, if you live in Mumbai or near Mumbai, you should go to it. It's a small Konkan island off the coast of Mumbai, Garapuri, and Elephanta is known for its beautiful, what is called Mahesh Murti, which is the three-faced Lord Shiva. And my purpose here is not to know this, but to keep on adding it here. And by doing this, I am making a notes which basically can solve any question in that regard, because this is where the main game is played. Now, if I go one step further, I get Udaygiri Khandiri caves in Odisha, which are known to be by King Karavela Jain caves, and it is one of the most interesting sector because it is two-storied caves. Hathi Gufa inscription and Rani Gufa inscriptions and caves are there, and very beautifully carved. This is Karle. So in this I add Udaygiri Khanderi caves, and my job is done, because I don't need to do a thesis on any one of them. Khandgiri, one second. Khandgiri. Thereafter comes the most famous of all, which is Karle. Karle is known for vaulted roof. Don't worry, I will right now make the Venn diagram, give you a break, come back, and again we'll discuss. Is known for vaulted roof. This is called a vaulted or gun barrel roof. And it is known for its ribbing, which is there. And Karle is both Chaitya Vihara, but it is only Buddhism. I hope you know how a Venn diagram works in that regard. Thereafter, you now start to get intersections. Pithalkora caves, which are there in the Western Ghats, all Buddhist. Junar caves are a very interesting combination because in Pune, you have Buddhism plus Hinduism. This is the interesting part. That Nasik caves, Pandavleni caves, as it came in the examination near Nasik, is all Buddhism. So in our story, you have Pithal Kora, you have Pandav Leni in Nasik, and now comes the very interesting Junar. And the most interesting thing is another combination is there in the Indian subcontinent, which is called Badami, which is Hinduism plus Jainism, wherein the first two is Nataraj and Lord Vishnu. Third is related to the Tirthankar. The third is also related to Hinduism. Fourth is related to the Tirthankar such as Bahubali, Parsarnath, and Mahavira. So what I do with all this information, which will mostly make you sick, is I add this and my job is done. This is what you do with cave architecture. Nobody is asking you to do a whole thesis. But what is the most interesting thing? Which intersection does not exist? Which intersection does not exist? The two contemporary to each other, Buddhism and Jainism. Now, what I want from you is I leave you on this slide. Let's take a 15-minute break. We'll come back at 7. I'll again revise with you. I will tell you what to remember out of it. But I want you to understand this first. Clear? This is what basically comes in the examination. Done? Okay. See you at 7. Okay, welcome back. Muzaffar, how long is that? Okay. Now, with regards to cave architecture, we've already established this, which is most of the prelims questions can be done through this. And we will again revisit caves in another context, which is murals. In that, we'll talk about, for example, Arnamalai, we'll talk about Sitan Mansal. Here, we are concentrating on caves which were constructed with a specific purpose of architectural purposes in that regard. Now, Udayagiri Khanderi is properly Jain. Ellora is a spectacle. Ellora always represents a certain intersection of religions. Badami is basically intersection of Brahmanism and Jainism, and Junar is the intersection of Buddhism and Brahmanism or Vedic Brahmanism. The interesting thing, two religions which emerged together in the same period had no intersections, which again shows a little bit of tension between these two. Now, what we have established at this point of time is that every cave architecture aspect, there are certain things which are known to these caves. For example, as I told you, Bodhisattva Padampani, here you have the different images. For example, you have Mahesh Murti, which is Lord Shiva, the three-faced Lord Shiva. Along with that, if you have the idea of what we call as the vaulted roof for Karle, for example, you have the three in the Western Ghats itself, made very beautifully into the mountains itself. The idea is only very simple. They can't ask you a question directly on any one cave. I will give you a question so as to give you a simulation of what can be asked. Can I do that? And then we start a very important thematic which is called temple architecture. Yes? Okay. Now, the question can be, for example, like this. Rock cut cave architecture is a testimony to the tolerance of the Indian subcontinent. Now, if you look at it in this type of question, there is no set answer. There's no set answer. Discuss. 150 words. 10 marks. Testimony means it is an example of. Now, very simply, this type of question has no set answer. And if you don't understand the basic idea of these caves, you will never be able to write this answer. Sakshi, refresh. What are the caves which have to be specifically mentioned here? Ravi's already written that. What are the caves we have to discuss specifically here? We have to discuss Ellora, Junar, and Badami. And you have to show through these three how these three together represent a tolerant space in which two religions could be in the same place. When it comes to the introduction and the conclusion, introduction you can easily write, for example, that when we talk about the ancient Indian history itself, can we say that ancient India is an example of Indian tolerance? Can we say that? Yes, we can. Because throughout this period, we see, for example, a Brahmanical dynasty making the most important caves, which are Ajanta caves, which are Buddhist, to how Shungas reconstructing the stupas, to how, for example, Samudragupta giving grants to Buddhists. The fact of the matter remains, as late as the imperial Chola, Jains, Buddhists, and Brahmins all got grants in the form of land grants. So the fact is, ancient Indian history is testimony to this, and the manifestation of that is in the form of the caves. So here you don't have to write a definite answer. For these type of questions, there are a lot of people on the internet who argue, for example, that learn an introduction. Learn an introduction. Make introductions, keep them with you. Now, my answer to that question is, firstly, how do you know that that question is going to come? First. And second, how many introductions will you learn? In these type of questions, which are open-ended, have been made to intersect multiple themes. How can you write an answer if you don't know how to write an introduction? So the worst thing which you can do is learn introductions, and the worst thing which you can also do is look at topper papers. Again, there's an infatuation to see how Tina Dabi wrote, or how this person wrote or that person wrote. First thing first, you are not Tina Dabi. So you don't know how she used to think about it, how she used to think in a way to create that introduction. And if you will try to copy somebody, there will be a point at which you will become saturated, or you will not be able to go forward. Find your own way of writing, and that is always something you have to do at the university level or even in UPSC. Everybody writes in a different way. Don't try to copy someone else. If that is clear, then we go to a very important thematic, which is temple architecture. One of the longest, the second longest in that regard, or the longest in that sense, related to what we call as Indo-Islamic architecture. That is the other longer one. Are we clear with regards to every discussion we have till this point? In this question, we only write about caves. Obviously, it is only a question related to caves. So why will you write anything else? Introduction, conclusion, we talk about generic things. Okay. Once we formulate answer for previous questions, you try to write it. See, it's like driving a car. You have to find your own feet. It will come to you. It will take time. It will slowly but surely come to you for sure. Okay. Now, temple architecture is a Gupta. As we go on, I'll keep on telling you about answer writing, not in one go. Gupta and post Gupta period. Why would that be the case, that temple architecture only emerges after Gupta, post Gupta? Why? Puranic Hinduism, the Shaftar concept, therefore, the Buddhism fading away, Brahmanism becoming important with the concept of Puranic Hinduism, Guptas start to build temples. Guptas are the first one to build temples in that regard. Now, I want to do something here. And it's called a magic trick. Now, magic trick is get a pen and paper. When you have it, say yes to me when you have pen and paper in front of you. Yes. So the magic trick is of mind reading. Now, see, I will teach you what is the basic components of a temple, the 5 stages of temple building, Nagara, Dravida, Vesara. What I want to do here is very simple. Make a temple, and I will predict what you've made. Aren't all of them contemporaries? No, in a way, gradationally moving forward. Temple building is the last one. Make a temple, say done. Whatever comes to your mind, whatever you've seen in your life, make a temple. And I will make 3 diagrams, and out of which 90% of you will intersect. This is the magic trick. Make a temple. Once everybody says done, then we move forward. Done. Okay. Now, when I asked you to make a temple, I'm not asking you to make Nagara Dravida, I'm asking you a generic temple. You would have made three types of images for sure. One, you would have made something like this, with or without the flag, or one, or you would have made something like this, two, or because you have a certain image in your mind of temples having multiple something like this. Which is the one I have predicted? 1, 2, or 3? Either 1 or 2 or 3. So I cannot be there, I cannot be physically present, but you have a certain image in your mind of temples. And basically, why am I saying that you already have a certain image, and therein it becomes an advantage and a disadvantage both for temple construction, because temples are around us. Temples we see in movies. Temples we see, for example, in the soap operas. We have seen in different what you call as ads, different places, different things. Right now, everything is about one temple itself. But that is the Ram temple, which is coming up right now. The Ayodhya temple, which is coming up right now, is actually the Ram Mandir is not any Nagara Dravida. It is actually Vesara. If you look at the basic construction, it is a mixture of a lot of things. I'll tell you when we'll analyze on 18th January. We have that current affairs webinar, right, for art and culture. We'll discuss there. What is the basic structure in that regard. Now, the simple point is temples we already know. So now what I mean to say is that you already have an image of a temple, and therefore you know what it is, but you don't know the names of it. You don't know the names of it. Now, the first thing which comes in the examination, is what are the components of a temple. Now, this is a generic temple. Generic means it is not saying north or south, because South Indian temples have a different structure. It is just talking about a temple. What is the basic components you can see in a temple itself? Now, I'll make a 3D render, 2D render you have to make, and I'll mark all the things which you should know as a generic temple. Then we'll talk about the 5 stages of development of this, and then we'll talk about Nagara. So the first thing which every temple has is called the Garbhagriha, or the sanctum sanctorum. Now, here you have the god image or whatever it may be. The god here is present in some form or the other. You have this is the sanctum sanctorum. Now, above the sanctum sanctorum, you have what is called the shikhar. It's called the shikhar. This is called the shikhar. It's called the shikhar. Shikhar, which is called the curvilinear tower, curvy linear tower. Then it is topped by what is called the Amlaka and the Kalash. Kalash is mostly to have auspiciousness, and this is the main structure, but this does not make the temple itself. The shikhar is mostly a solid structure, very rarely hollow. Thereafter, most of the temples have what is called the mandapa or ardh mandap. See, this part is called ardh mandapa, which is basically the entrance and you would have steps up to this point. And the most or rather the biggest part of the temple is basically called the mandapa or 5, 6. This is called the congregation hall. You all wait in this so as to go up till the ardh mandap to the rather the garbhagriha, and generally you have what is called as a raised platform on which the temple is mostly kept at a height. Not specifically today. We're not talking about today. We're talking about the ancient or the early medieval period. These lines represent pillars which are mostly made to have the structure bear the load itself. Now, this is a generic temple, and 6 features together basically make any generic temple. You gave me a front-on image of it. I have given you a 3D rendering of it. And in the examination, you have to make a 2D render, which I've already made in front of you. I'll make it again so that you can make it in the examination. The simple point, which I am trying to argue here is very straightforward, straightforward point, is that everybody has seen some part of this for sure, but you don't know what it was called. So try to link this up with what you already know, and it will help you learn better. Because if you can experience it, if you have a temple nearby, go and check it out so that you can see these things in yourself. Now, this is a 3D render. Does anybody have any issue here? Because I will tell you how to make it in for the examination quickly. If they ask you what are the basic components of a temple, no issues? Okay. Now, when they ask you basic components, congregation means people coming together. Basic components of a temple, you have to make something like this. It's a very simple thing. Very simple, straightforward thing. Make a rectangle and divide into two parts. Make a triangle over it. Make a circular disc and put a simple cylinder on it. Then make another triangle and this. That's it. Now you mark it. Garbhagriha, Mandapa, Ardh Mandapa, raised platform, Shikhara, Amlaka, Kalash. Can you make this? Can you make dome on mandap? No, don't do that. Because you don't know which dome to make it. You actually don't know. It has to be something like this. What you will do is you will make an Indo-Islamic dome because you don't know the difference. So rather than mixing two things up, I really beg to differ that you don't make it. That's better. It would be something like this. But you don't have the time to do what I did here. What is the meaning of amlak? Amlaka mostly means aam ka patta. Basically, kalash is always with a mango leaves. So amlaka and kalasha comes out of that. What have you added, Sachin? Matlab I did something in front of you and you didn't realize that. No need for flag. No, there is no flag. Is very no modern thing. I added this part which I'm removing, which should not be there because you will start to waste time in making this. If everybody is done with this, we move forward. Everybody has to make it and say yes. Make it. Make it. What platform is that, sir? Standard platform. Small, it could be a mount on which it is made. Okay. Now, what I've established in front of you, Shikhar is not hollow. It is always a structure which is mostly a proper solid structure. Now, I have established to you exactly this thing, which is what are the components of a temple. You have a Garbhagriha, you have Ardhamandap, Mandap, Amlaka, Shikhar, Kalash, and Sanctum Sanctorum, where the deity is. Mandapa is the congregational hall where large number of devotees can be there. Shikhar is the mountain-like structure. It can be hollow. Is mostly not hollow, not made hollow nowadays. Then Vahana, you have Vahan, which every god has, a certain animal related to them as Vahan, Nandi, the mouse, like that, Garud. That way, the Vahan would mostly be placed in the Mandapa, in the Mandap section itself. So in examination, diagram comes. No, diagram is not coming. It is not a science exam. You are expected to make this if they ask you a question with regards to what are the generic components of a temple. Are we clear? Because then I want to go into 5 stages of development. Okay. Okay. Now temples construction and design went through 5 stages of development. from the Gupta period onwards, we see the basic components emerging. Basic components emerging. Now the first stage, pay attention, I will make it, then I will make a table, and it should not be a problem for you generally. Were shikhars of that time unhollow? See, all hollow, unhollow doesn't matter. There's no generic rule, there's no set plan. Don't get caught up in anything which doesn't matter. But mostly hollow, there is no set plan. There could be 5 shikhars made hollow, 5 shikhars not made hollow. So don't worry about it. The last thing you actually need to worry about. First stage is when we see that two basic components emerge. One is square garbhagriha and second is shallow mandap. Shallow means not very big, small. And what are the components missing here? Three major components missing here. Yes, no shikhra, no platform, and what we see is that no ardha mandap. Now, when we go to, and the example of this is given here also, don't worry about that again. Every example is given. Temple number 17 at Sachi, every temple is given. Amlaka Kalash is obviously, when there's no Shikha, there would be no Amlaka and Kalasha. Second stage is when what we see is that second stage is when the raised platform emerges. Garbhagriha is also there. Square. And Ardha Mandap and Mandapa both have started to be conceptualized. So again, what you don't have is no shikhra. So from this to this, there's one change. Now, when the third stage comes, you have raised platform and Shikhar emerges. With or without Amlaka culture doesn't really matter. And you have Garbhagriha, and you also have Ardhamandap and Mandapa. Now, one more interesting things emerge, which is called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's called Panchayatan design. Panchayatan means that if I'm looking from top down, rather I make it 3D only. If I'm looking at the basic structure of the plan of the temple, I'm looking at it. I have one god here, but I also have subsidiary gods on the corners. You would have seen it for sure in your life that there would be multiple gods in the same temple complex. Basically, subsidiary shrines more than one means Panchayatan. What do I mean by? Because what students do is they go by Panch, matlab chota kok. So Panchayatan means has to have 5 temples. No. Even if it is 1, it is 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. It is called Panchayatan. Panchayatan means there is a subsidiary shrine in the temple complex, which in itself means Panchayatan. And Panchayatan is able to develop because gods have their own avatars, and the whole image is becoming bigger. So you have Lord Shiva, Parvati, Lord Kartikeya, Ganesha, Nandi. And the same way you have, for example, the Ram Darbar, as we call it. The simple point is Panchayatan design is about adding subsidiary shrines to the main temple. There is a main temple, and then these could be in a different direction. This could be also connected to each other. There's no set plan with regards to this. Simple point is Panchayatan means more than one shrine or more than one Garbhagriha. More than one Garbhagriha. More than one Garbhagriha or subsidiary shrine is called Panchayatan. Are we clear about this? Are we clear about this? Because stage 3 is very, very important. Yes. Panchayatan is basically an architectural feature. Now, if you understand this, fourth and fifth is very easy. Fourth stage and fifth stage, the only thing is now they're showing off. Fourth stage, Garbhagriha becomes rectangular. And in fifth stage, Garbhagriha becomes circular. Becomes circular. That is it. So as to show it to you properly, see. Stage 1, temple roof is flat, square, portico. Entire structure was built on a low platform. Temple number 7 at Sachi. Second, you get a raised platform, and all other things are seen in the Parvati temple, for example, in MP. Thereafter comes third stage, very important. Emergence of Shikhar, Panchayatan, with all other features previously, the Shavtar temple at Devgarh and Durga temple at Ayur. Thereafter, fourth is when the all things remain the same. For example, in Ter temple in Sholapur, and just that it becomes a rectangle. And last is introduction of circular temples, which is the Manyar Mutt in Rajgir. And later you have the Chaussat Yogini cult itself, which fully uses circular design for temples, which was used for the parliament building also. Now, all of this can be summarized in one slide. But before I do that, is this making sense to you? The 5 stages. Yes? Okay. Now, I can summarize it in one slide. See, stage, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Garbhagriha, platform, mandapa, shikhara, panchayatan. Square, 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 rectangular, circular. Platform not there, mandap there, shikhar not there, panchayatan not there. Second, second, platform, mandap, no shikhar, no panchayatan. Third, platform, mandap, shikhar, panchayatan. Done. Make sense? Now, I give you 5 minutes, process this, understand this, and then I talk about Nagara basic style. What is Panchayatan? Panchayatan means one god with subsidiary shrines. Multiple Garbhagriha means Panchayatan. Right? So we come back at 55. You process this, learn it in class so that you don't have to learn it separately. That is the purpose of giving you this 5 minutes. It's not a breather, it's a learning 5 minutes. Use it. Okay. First, second, third, fourth, and fifth stage clear. I hope that you would have gone through this, for example, in the if you have NCRT, which is the fine arts one. If you've seen that, you would know that it's written in a confusing way. I've tried to make it clear. You have no shikhar here, small platform, square, platform, shikhar, platform, and panchayatan, rectangle, circular. Okay. With this, let's talk about, see, we Nagara is the biggest because second has no shikhar, yes. Nagara is Nagara style itself, and thereafter there are two differentiations in it. One is the differentiation according to shikhar, and the other one is according to region. And three are here, three are here. Latina, Famsada, and Vallabhi. You have Odisha, Solanki, and the concept of Khajuraho. So very simply, where have I written in the table? Shikhar is not there in second, only third. Karthik, what table are you looking at? And I've not even made it here. First, second, no Shikhar. Some other channel you're watching? साथ साथ में? Okay. Difference. Tell what is difference in making Garbhagriha Mandap in diagram. Nothing. The square part is the Garbhagriha. Mandap is the congregation hall. In the diagram, you can't do it separately. Simple, straightforward point. Okay. So not this diagram. Which diagram? Garbhagriha, Mandap, other Mandap. Another one. I have no idea which one. Now another करते हुए रात हो जाएगा कोई बात नहीं. Okay. You are saying these ones here the mandaps don't survive. There are posts for them. The mandaps don't survive here, but there are mandaps. There are mandaps. Something like this. There are mandaps. Okay. So one thing is very clear that Nagara obviously will start today, but we cannot finish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss the basic features of Nagara style. Now, in a way, when I asked you to make the temple, you were actually making Nagara style itself. There are only three changes which happen, and you get Nagara style. Nagara style is the style which is in North India, Dravida in South, Vesara in Deccan, and Central India. Now, when we talk about this, see, Nagara style, standard things remain the same. There's only one major change. See, now, Now, see, this doesn't change. This doesn't change. But one thing now has a term for it. We call this raised platform. The exact term for it is pitha. Is pitha. When we go into the concept of nagara, now you have a word for the raised platform. Previously, we did not have a word for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 things I have pointed out here for a Nagara style temple. Ironically, you already know how to make a Nagara because that is the basic idea. Now, can I add more? Pitha and Jagati are not the same. I was going to come to that. Jagati is a specific word used in Vesara. Pitha is a word which is used in Nagara. Pitha is the word which should be used. If Jagati books are using, that is incorrect. Only one change with regards to knowing called Pitha. The new terminology which is added is Pitha. Are these 7 points clear? Then I add more points to basic features of Nagara style. Are we clear about these 7? Come on. Yes? Yes. Now. the next thing would be 8th point. No boundary wall. And please don't tell me, sir, I've seen a boundary wall. Are they not boundary walls? Added later. Original early medieval temples did not have a boundary wall. 9. No tank or water resource within the temple complex. Meaning, when you will see a Nagara style temple, it will be freestanding. It will be freestanding like this. It will most probably do not have a boundary wall and will not have an entry gate or gateway to enter the temple complex. To enter the temple complex. So 10 things are written here. Any issue? No tank, no boundary wall, no entry gate, and the 7 points which you already know. Very good. Now, 10th and 11th point is more interesting. Panchayatan style of temple with clusterization of shikhars. This is something again you would have seen that in Nagara style temples in North India, you would have a cluster of shikhars together. Meaning, generally, you do not have the subsidiary shrines. Subsidiary shrine are attached to main shikhar or garbhagriha. A, B, C. Main god will be under which shikhar? Yes. B, main god as main shikhar or tallest shikhar has the main garbhagriha. Now we have seen that there is clusterization. We have seen that there is Panchayatan style of temple. Now last is the imagery within the temple is welcoming and Ganga and Yamuna figures or goddesses are there. What do you mean by this? A and C also have Garbhagriha under them, but the main temple will be, main god will be under B. See, what this means is that if you look at, for example, South Indian temple and a North Indian temple, North Indian temple has very welcoming imagery, very pure imagery. It's not very fierce. It's not fear instilling. You will have river goddesses. You will yaksha, yakshi. You will have mithun. You mostly the imagery is welcoming, because in north the temple is important, but it is not a power center. That is not true for South India. In South India, the power of the temple is projected in its imagery. Imagery means decoration. So in North Indian temples, the decoration is more welcoming, than the South Indian ones. Which when I'll teach you Dravida, I will show you that also. So there you will see Dwarpals. Here we have no Dwarpals. There rather Ganga Yamuna goddess is there, basically welcoming the people going into the temple. So I have written 11 points in front of you. Are these 11 points clear? Yes or no? 10th point says that Panchayatan is there, which means there are subsidiary shrines, but all shrines are not separated to each other. They are brought together so as to create a cluster of shikhars. Now, either you don't know what a cluster means, then that's a problem, or you don't know what is Panchayatan means. That is also a problem. Panchayatan means multiple, and then shikhar coming together means cluster. Things coming together is a cluster. Second is 11th. 11th point is that imagery, which is decoration. Again, you are acting like here, like Americans, or basically like you've never seen a temple. That is the biggest problem. You act like you've never seen a temple, so that you don't understand what is the difference between a fierce imagery, wherein you have a lion or a mythical creature called Yali there, or Ganga, Yamuna, women figures, very welcoming figures. Simple point is, you understand the difference between a fierce imagery and a welcoming imagery, yes or no? Because the problem is, it's not the issue, it's the vocabulary which is actually very problematic. You understand what is a fierce imagery and what is a welcoming imagery. Then what is the problem? It is painting, it is sculpture, it is decoration, everything is that. In north or in south, we are talking about north only. So we are talking about north. South we will discuss Dravida. It says north. Pick up. Now. What have I established? Pitha, Garbhagriha, Shikhar, Amlaka, Kalsha, Mandapa, Ardhamandap, and thereafter no tank, water resources within the complex, entry gateway with entry gateway, no entry gateway is there, no boundary wall is there. Thereafter, Panchayatan, clusterization of Shikhar, and the main god is under the biggest Shikhar. And the imagery is welcoming with Ganga Yamuna complex. Now this I'll read out to you, and then we'll see what we can cover further. The style of temple architecture that became popular in North India is called Nagara. Nagara is common for having this pitha, which is the platform itself. Further, it does not have elaborate boundary wall or gateways. Earliest temples had one tower, but later there were multiples. Garbhagriha is always under the tallest tower, which is the most important. Thereafter, last point should be 10. Okay, so this is already 10. 11, no, by 12. Okay. Okay. Now, outside the Garbhagriha, the imagery is of river goddesses Ganga and Yamuna, presence of assembly hall and mandapa, Panchayatan style, main sanctum with subsidiary shrines. No water tanks or reservoirs are present in the temple premises. This is a plan for a Panchayatan style, wherein you come in, there is one mandap and there are multiple shrines. But this is a very good, very, very good image. Remove this, the words which you don't need to know. Jagati is not the word we use. This is again problematic. Pitha. Then you have Mandap, Mandap, Mahamandap, remove. Antartala is okay. Urushikha, remove. Now you see, it has all the things we've discussed. You have the raised platform, which is Pitha. Then you have the Pardakshin Path, which you take to go inside. Then you have Ardha Mandap, which is the initial part. Then you have the Mandap, and then you have Antartal. Antartal is the place where Mandapa and Garbhagriha meet. Which is basically this point. This would be Antartal. Then you can see Shikhars 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under which Shikhar is the main god? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which Shikhar? 5. And you have the Amlaka and the Kalsha also. This is a very good image. This is actually Khajuraho temple, but yeah. Not 1 but 5. Who is the one? Vikram, why 1? Tallest. If no entry gateway, then people enter. If no, Areva. I didn't know. How they are washing feet without water present there. इसका मतलब ये थोड़ा था कि कोसों तक पानी नहीं था. If you've, it's not in the desert. Most of these temples, why do these temples actually don't have a water structure together? You tell me. Guess why is that most of the temples in North India do not have a water resource with it? You tell me. Because most of these temples are based on rivers, or there is a pond or a lake near it. All these temples are mostly perennial rivers are flowing with it. That is not true for South India. South India temples are very far away from rivers and they need water resources. We'll discuss that. Second thing is, Sachin, you tell me one thing. If no entry gateway, then how do people enter? Now, you tell me one thing very clearly, very simply. Does your gate straight away open to the road? As soon as you open your main gate, does it open to the road? No. So, if you have a house and you have a gate here, and then you have a compound and you have a gate here, which will be called the entry gate of the house? A or B? B is the entry gate. This is Ardha Mandap. This is gateway. So when there is no boundary wall, there is no gateway. That's the only thing. How will people enter? Through the Ardha Mandap. Basic logic, I'm not able to understand how. Where are you keeping that? Again, you are acting like Americans. Acha, idhar se ghusna hai. Where do I go from? I don't understand. What is the point of that? How will people enter into a temple? You have never entered into a temple. If there is no an entry gate, gateway, these are different things. So I don't understand. Basic logic is this. There is the basic logic. If there's no entry gate, how people enter? Because Ardha Mandap, I'm telling you, is the entry into the temple. But there is no boundary wall, so there will be no gateway. And this is, I'm very categorical as saying, because in Dravida, it is the opposite. It has a gateway, which is called Gopuram. It has a boundary wall, and it has a water resources. These are the three basic features which are different. Dan Peti original or not? Again, must question. You tell me. Vivek, you tell me. Dan Peti original or not? Issues if different altogether. See, this only means that if I try to do Hamsana, Latina and anything else, you will start to overheat. Simple point is I'm trying to consolidate what we've done today. And you also have a webinar, so I'll leave you 5 minutes early. It's a Tuesday. Yeah. So first thing first. Very simply. We did stupa, then we did cave, then we did temple. Stupa, simple, straightforward. Stupa. Cave, we discussed the Venn diagram. And here we've discussed generic temple, 5 stages, and Nagara. Now, tomorrow, if anybody is going to ask me what is Shikhar and this and that, I will literally ignore you. Wherein we have already, what tomorrow's agenda is very simple. I have to discuss with you 6 subdivisions of Nagara. Then I have to discuss with you the concept of Dravida, Vesara, and then go into Indo-Islamic architecture. So we have discussed today 12 features of Nagara. Before that, I've discussed the 5 stages of development of temples itself. And thereafter, I have also discussed with you how are the 5 stages developing, what does a generic temple look like, and further stupa and architecture related to cave. I hope all of this makes sense. Yes? Okay. If it makes sense, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll finish temple, very important, and then we'll move to Indo-Islamic, again equally important. Okay. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow. I hope all of this is making sense. I'm going very slow in these sections because these are mains-oriented areas. When I'll go to theater and martial arts, I'll tell you what to do there. Here, savor it, understand it. I'm giving you time to learn also because it is important that you learn it in class itself. So very simply, keep it simple here. Slow, we'll go slow here. Then we'll pick up the pace when it will become factual. Yes? Done. Thank you. Take care. You can now wait and go to the webinar.